And called the Phobia Cure. It used to be called the Phobia Cure. We don't call it that now because we don't cure things. Phobias are medically diagnosed. So we now call it VK dissociation, visual kinesthetic dissociation. Because you see, a phobia typically is a situation where somebody sees something and has a very, very intense kinesthetic emotional reaction. Okay? In terms of how the mind is working, the mind it's elegant. People, it is just elegant. You see, you're walking down a path at night, right? And you see something on the ground, which may or may not be a threat, right? It could be an animal or a snake. So you see this thing on the ground. If you had to stop and go, I wonder what that is. Is that a stick or a snake? Like, you know, it could be too late, right? Because the light has to come into your eye, has to go back to your visual cortex, has to get processed, has to be sent to the prefrontal cortex, and that has to then make a decision, right? That takes time. So what your brain does is, as the light goes into your eye and back towards your visual cortex, it is routed on the way to the amygdala, which is kind of like a little brain inside your head. Very limited in terms of functionality, and you can't necessarily tell the difference between a snake and a stick, but if there's anything that remotely looks like a snake, it's going to put you into fight or flight, like freeze, fight or flight, just in case. So a number of years ago, we went down to one of the theme parks in Florida, and they have this stupid ride where you go into this darkened room, and they have this wall, and they have this barred door, and you have a group of people in front, and they go, there is a wild gorilla behind this door. And you go like, really? And they're like talking about where they found it and all this stuff, and then as in this darkened room, somebody from behind the door rolls a tire against the cage door so it shakes. But you see it's a tire. You go like, this is the lamest thing I've ever seen in my life. It's ridiculous. And then suddenly this guy dressed in a gorilla suit runs up to the cage door, throws the door open, and runs out into the room. And your prefrontal cortex is saying, this is stupid, this is a guy in a gorilla suit. And as you're thinking that, you're already outside. Because your amygdala said, ain't taking no chances, out of here. So even though cognitively you know it's a stupid thing, you're gone. Because your amygdala is called amygdala hijack, right? Because this little part of your brain hijacks you, right? Just to be sure, it takes you outside. Never know. Right? So when, in the early days of NLP, they said, well, how can we absolutely definitely show that this stuff works? Right? What can we do, what can we work on that we know we can fix that will show that this stuff works? And they said, phobia. Why? Because it's definite. Somebody either has a phobia or they don't. Right? They don't sometimes have a phobia. Either they see the thing and they go, ah, or they don't. It's not like they have it on Monday but not on Tuesday. It's definite. Right? So it's very easy to see if it's being cured. Hence the phobia cure. So what they did is Bandler put an ad in the paper and he said, I'm looking for people who used to have phobias. Remember? Used to have, right? But don't now. So we got all these guys who used to have a phobia, they don't have a phobia now, therefore somewhere in between those two times there was a point in time where the phobia stopped. What happened? Right? He was looking for the model. So they came up and he interviewed them, and they all basically said the same thing. They said, I used to have a phobia, and then one day I looked at myself, look at self, move head backwards, and I said, how stupid is that? Think of self as stupid. And then I didn't have the phobia anymore, right? So now he's got his model. right? Look at self. This is called what in terms of NLP? Dissociation, right? I see myself. This is also dissociative, right? Laugh at myself. No longer have phobia. You had the model.